Thank you everyone for joining us tonight. Welcome to the program on starting plants from seeds. My husband kind of made fun of me on this one. He said, "Are you really going to teach people how to put a seed in the soil and watch it grow?" And I said, "There's way more than that. You know, people fail from seeds all the time, and then they don't want to try it again. So I'm going to teach you the tips and tricks that the experts use to save money, to be successful with seeds. You can also get more varieties of plants when you buy the seeds. You won't see a lot of those in the stores. You can combat stunted plants. Some of you may have had that issue. Prevent plant failure. And also learn how to store seeds properly. If you just collect seeds from a neighbor or a friend gives them to you and you stick them in a drawer, they may not germinate. They may not grow the next year. You have to treat them a certain way. Learn when it's not a good idea to start plants from seeds. Sometimes it's better to propagate in a different way. Before I get started though, give me about a minute of your time to introduce you to TRWD, Tarrant Regional Water District. This presentation is supported by a regional water supplier, Tarrant Regional Water District. TRWD maintains 4 area lakes and pipelines needed to provide surface water to local water treatment plants so they can clean it to meet drinking water standards for our communities. They also work with many cities in Tarrant County, such as Fort Worth, Arlington, and Mansfield, to provide water conservation programs to the community. Conservation is an important water supply strategy to help meet the needs of a growing population. There are currently 2.3 million people in Tarrant County, and this is expected to double over the next 50 years. This is why TRWD supports many programs that help save water through outdoor watering and gardening education. At SaveTarrantWater.com, you can sign up for free weekly watering advice custom to your location. If you are a resident of Tarrant County, you can sign up for a free sprinkler system checkup where a licensed irrigator comes to your home and provides comprehensive evaluation of your system and recommendations to reduce water waste. There's also an event calendar where you can find information about future classes and workshops. TRWD also partners with organizations like Texas A&M AgriLife Extension Service and Tarrant County Master Gardeners to provide educational programs just like this one. So be sure to check out SaveTarrantWater.com and sign up for their free services. The sprinkler checkup I did myself, very comprehensive. It was really good. They basically tell you if you're wasting water in a corner or if your sprinkler system is broken, and they will give you all of those itemized issues, how you can save water and do better in your yard. So please sign up. All right, let's get into our program here. So are you guys ready to care for your growing seeds? You know, when I talk to my students about this, a lot of them started off okay, and then they wonder, where did I go wrong? Why did my seeds start, but then suddenly they started falling over? They saw some white fungal stuff growing. They sometimes plant the seeds and they go on vacation. You can't do that. You have to treat your seeds like another pet. It is a pet. You have to plant them, water them, watch them, fertilize them, and watch them grow. You can't just set it and forget it. So be prepared to put some time aside to take care of your seeds. All right, so why do we want to do this? It is a little extra step. It's extra work, but we do it to save money. It's fun. We share and swap. I love seed exchange parties, plant swaps. You can do this too, like with your HOA garden club, your church community, you know, because a lot of these seed packets might have 100 seeds in them. Do you really need 100 tomato plants? No, but it would be fun. But go ahead and grow some and have a swap party. You can get a jump start for spring. Tomato plants especially, they need to grow to a certain size for them to start developing fruit. So that's a good idea to get a jump start by going the seed route instead of waiting for your local store to carry all the different plants. And of course, better plant selection. You might go to a store and find 5 different tomato varieties, whereas in the seed section, you might be able to find 20, or even if you shop online. So I like to go the seed route. So a lot of people think, okay, I've got a sunny window, that must be enough. It is not. Okay, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but some of us don't have good windows. We think it's sunny just because we see the sun come through, but it's not enough for your sun. So you end up with these lanky, leggy, very weak plants. So you have to have a good south-facing window. You must. If it's an east-facing window or west-facing window, northeast, guys, that's not going to be enough. You need to either invest in a grow light or get that appropriate south-facing window. Find out where that is in your house. Even if you do have a south-facing window, you might have a tree there, or a neighbor's house might be too close to yours that's causing too much shade. So what you can do is visit that window in the morning, middle of the day, and then later towards the evening. Is it really sunny? If it is, then you might have really good success with your seeds. If not, invest in a grow light. They're not expensive. And if you're really serious about starting seeds, I would go ahead and get one. You can go online. There's all different types. I like to use an automatic timer on mine just because I'm kind of lazy and I'm forgetful. I set it and I don't have to turn it on and off every single day. So this is leggy growth on the left-hand side. A lot of you might have started your seeds and thought, well, they don't look like the ones from the store. What's wrong with my plants? It's because they didn't get enough sunlight or even artificial light, if you will. The plants on the right, that's how the plant should look. It should look proportionate. The leaves should be pretty big compared to the height of the plant. The leaves should be spread out. The leaves on the left, see, they're kind of curled. The stem of the plants look like they could break. If you've got this result on the left, guys, you're not starting off on the right foot. So number one, get better light for your poor plants. Planting, seed starting mix. I told my students, if you've done it before and you haven't had any issues, get regular potting soil. You can even make your own. There's so many DIY soil recipes online. But if you find that year after year, you plant your little seeds, you end up with fungal issues, damping off issues. We'll talk about all that later. If you're not successful, then you may want to go ahead and invest in some seed starting mix. That seed starting mix is basically soil that's been sterilized. So you're not going to have that added issue of having those bad guys come in and destroy your plants. And I'll show you what those look like. It might look familiar to some of you guys. Plant seeds at the right depth. Generally speaking, the bigger the seed, the deeper it goes. But you don't want to plant your seeds too deep where they can't push up all that soil and get to the surface. You have to keep your soil moist, but not soggy. Don't forget your seeds, when they start germinating or when they pop out of their shell, they develop a little root system. And those little roots are so tiny, okay? They can barely take care of themselves. You really need to take care of them, kind of like a baby. You need to water them, make sure they're not drying out, because once that soil dries out, that is it. There goes your seedling. And it didn't have enough energy stored or enough root to sustain itself. So you have to start all over. Here are 3 examples. I'm not promoting any of these in particular. I just wanted to show you what seed starting mix typically looks like. Again, this is optional. You don't have to do this. I personally don't, just because I am very sterile in how I plant my seeds. I will talk to you guys about all those steps and some more advanced things. I tried to touch on some ABC, planting seeds 101 to some more advanced information in this class so that you will be prepared and you will be confident when you start your plants through seeds. Some of you may want to invest in a heating mat. When I do use a heating mat, the results are superior. The plants grow faster, they germinate faster, they develop faster, because you're kind of tricking them into thinking late spring, summer is here. If your house is really, really cold, or you start your seeds at your window, okay? Think how cold that windowsill is next to that glass window compared to in the middle of your house. So that's what your seed is feeling, okay? It's cold. So you might see some hesitation from those seeds. They might just be like, it's just too cold. It's not time to come out. They don't think spring and summer is here yet when they're by that icy window. So keep that in mind. Again, if you buy one online, a small one, they're not expensive. And again, this is optional too. I've grown seeds without the heating mat, but I do see that they germinate faster and grow faster. They're just happier with some warmth underneath them. Commercial growers use heating mats so that they can get these plants to you faster. When to start seeds indoors? Our last average frost date is the middle of March. You know, some people will argue, oh, it's March 12. Some people say March 18. They might be right. So I just tell my students middle of March. March starts with an M. So just remember middle of March, easy peasy. That is our last average frost date, average. It doesn't mean that we're safe from freezes, you know, after that point. As you guys know, even up until Mother's Day, we have that risk of having a freeze, especially here in crazy Texas. We've got some crazy weather. So I'll show you a website later where you can actually get your specific average last frost date according to your zip code. But again, you don't have to be that specific, but some people are finicky about that and want to know exactly when it is. But the reason you need to know that last average frost date is because, generally speaking, you need to plant your seeds indoors about 4 to 8 weeks before that last average frost date. That's why we need to know that. Now, our last average frost date here in North Texas is going to be way different than in Kentucky or Maine or Hawaii. So make sure you know when to start your seeds when our last average frost date is here. And follow your seed packet instructions. This website that I'll tell you about, let's say you've got some seeds from your grandma or your neighbor. You can get good information from the website. You can even Google for the information. When do I plant these arugula seeds? And then you'll get that information. When to start seeds outdoors? Spring through late fall, okay? There is a vegetable planting calendar that I'll show you later on in this presentation that tells you exactly when to plant. When you can transplant, meaning you're moving a plant from a pot to the ground, or when you can seed. Okay, there's a difference. Be sure to check that seed packet instructions if you have it. It doesn't lie. It tells you exactly if you should sow directly inside, outside, or if you should start your seeds indoors. Some seeds are better sown directly outdoors. One example is a morning glory. The reason, and that's a vine, the reason is because some seeds don't like their roots handled. They don't like movement. They don't like disruption. So you may grow, it is successful. You can be successful growing it in a pot, which I have done just to kind of start the year early because I want blooms faster. So I will cheat and start them indoors, but it is recommended to start them outside directly in the ground because again, they don't like their roots disturbed. In that situation, what you can do is use those peat pots. That way, it's like a corrugated cardboard type peat pot. That way you can just directly put those outside, maybe like rip them up a little bit to help the roots out, and it'll just compost and grow into the soil, and you're not disrupting or moving the roots. Okay, here's that website, almanac.com. So on the top there, I gave you the actual address. Just go to almanac.com and then click on gardening, planting calendar, and then your zip code, and you will get the specific information. This is just a snapshot of starting with A, arugula, asparagus, basil. Some people go by moon dates. I don't. As you can see here, they're very similar to the last average frost dates. That's what I go by. But in this situation here, it tells you for arugula, and this was an Arlington zip code that I entered. Zip code 76013 is what I typed in. The last average frost date, it says March 16, and it says when to start your arugula seeds indoors, okay? So we missed the mark on that one to start them indoors. We're pretty close to this one here, start seeds outdoors. You don't have to be specific to this, okay? We're a couple days off, no big deal. Go ahead and get them planted. As a matter of fact, it says right here, last date to plant, October 15. So this is a very hardy plant, especially you can go ahead and plant that, and you can even harvest it by cutting it and leaving the root, and it'll grow more leaves for you. Here are the backs of 2 seed packets. Let's look at the one on the left first. That one says, sow in rich, fertile soil after danger of frost, okay? Sow 1 to 2 seeds about 36 inches apart and cover with 1 inch of fine soil. Firm lightly and keep evenly moist. Seedlings emerge in 10 to 14 days. Harvest often. I do recommend that. Once you get your veggie garden growing, you need to harvest often, because if you leave cucumbers or tomatoes dangling on the plant, it continues to send energy to those fruits and flowers. So you need to continually take those off so the plant can go, oh, a fruit's been taken, let me make another one. So you've got to kind of be there for your garden if you want to be a productive gardener. Look down here, okay? In this picture here, we are in this purplish region here. It says for our area, we need to plant these between March through April. Huge season to plant. On this right side, it says start indoors. Okay, they tell you exactly, this producer knows exactly, they've tested it. They know how this fruit, vegetable, herb, whatever you're planting, how it performs better. So they tell you to start this one indoors. And look down here. Notice this map. Okay, now we're in the orange region. So it says transplant. Remember, transplant means you're actually putting a grown plant into the ground. You're transplanting it from a pot to the ground. And you do that here in our zone, March through May, and again, July through August. You know, you guys know we have 2 gardening seasons here in North Texas, right? Spring and fall. Summertime, take a break. Our drought and heat makes it almost impossible to keep it going, but the vegetable garden has a second life here. You can prune a lot of tomatoes and other plants and keep them going through the summer. They'll be stressed out, but they will give you a second batch in the fall. Now, some plants, they're too thirsty and need a lot of water, like the crispy vegetables, like cucumbers, squash. Those are harder to maintain in the summer. So it's better just to go ahead and cull and cut down at the peak of summer. Go ahead and harvest what you can, compost the cuttings, and then start another batch in the fall. Irises. So the question a lot of people ask me is, should I collect the seeds of plants or should I propagate in another way? Irises, most of you are probably familiar with this plant. It grows like a weed. You plant a tuber in the ground, okay, that a friend normally gives you, or you can buy one. And the next year, you notice that it's growing tightly. There's more there. You started with 1, but now you've got 30. You dig it up, and now you've got all these tubers that you can break apart and share with friends, and now they have some. A lot of perennial plants are like that. You can either do root division by digging it up and cutting it into 4s or however many cuttings you want to make there, or like the tubers that I explained to you. In a situation like this with irises, would it make sense for you to collect the seeds and then have to go through all that trouble of planting, watering, grow lights? No. The answer is no. On plants, usually hardy perennials that come back year after year from the ground, it's not worth it to save the seed because that's just more work for you. Dig up the root, divide it, split it, you've got more plants. Now, plants that would benefit from you saving seeds would be plants that are hard to get. annuals maybe. Moss roses do very well with seed. They are an annual, but if you just even leave the plant there, the seeds will disperse and they will come back next year from seed. Basil, vinca, those are all annuals that you can actually pick the seeds off the plant, dry them, store them, plant them next year, save money. So it's kind of like a repurposed plant over and over and over. I love swapping seeds like that with friends. You've probably seen a display like this. You go to the store, you're wondering, should I start by seed? Should I buy an already grown plant? Well, it really depends. It really depends. And I'll tell you which ones to buy already grown and which ones to buy by seed. I can't go through every plant, of course. We're very limited on time here, but I'll give you a general idea. Look at the seed package instructions, okay? If the seed packet says, so, plant indoors in your pots 4 to 6 weeks before your last average frost date. Well, what is today? Today it's the end of February. So our last average frost date is middle of March. We've only got about 2.5 weeks left until that last average frost date. We're kind of running out of time with some things. You can still plant the seed. Like I said, you don't have to be exactly within that time frame. But if you want to jumpstart, like on tomatoes, you really should have already planted those, the seeds indoors. But it's okay. If you're running out of time, you work, you're busy, go ahead and just buy a potted plant and do that your first year. And maybe next year you can experiment with starting with seeds. Okay, so make sure you look at the time frame. Do you have the time? Do you have the willpower to take care of everything? And is it the right time? I will show you that planting calendar at the very end of our presentation here. Is buying a lettuce already grown in like one of these pots you see here, is it worth it to buy a lettuce? No. You can do it. I tell beginners, go ahead and buy the plant so that you have that one risk of starting with seed failure out of the way. But lettuce is very easy to grow. Just buy a seed packet and throw your seeds outside in your garden and put a little a sifted soil on top. Good to go. If you buy one lettuce in one of these little pots, you're bringing home one head of lettuce. How much is one head of lettuce at the store? $3 maybe? Well, think about all the time and attention you need to give that plant just because you bought that one head of lettuce. It's better just to buy it at the store, guys. So I would just get some seeds, throw them out. Now you're going to have 100 lettuces that you can continuously harvest and eat. And with lettuces, you can actually cut and leave the crown, and it'll actually grow leaves again for you over time. But would you rather just have one or two or hundreds? And then you can also get like little microgreens, like little mini lettuces, and continuously enjoy those too. What about a tomato plant? Would it be a wise investment to buy a tomato plant already grown? Yes, because they've already done all the hard work for you. Okay, you didn't have to plant the seed. You are planting a mature, well, not a mature tomato plant, but a formed tomato plant, and you can put it outside and you will get hundreds of tomatoes off of that plant. So it's worth your investment of $3 or $4 to buy a tomato plant, but you may not want to buy that lettuce. Seed planting suggestions and tips. Use repurposed containers. Just a little bit about me. I have become kind of a minimalist over the years. I'm trying to get rid of a lot of stuff that I just don't need, things that collect dust. I want to live simply with less. So I've been donating a lot and rehoming things. This bottom left picture here, those are Keurig pods. If you're a coffee drinker and you find that you have a lot of those plastic pods, it's a shame that we use so much plastic these days. But if you do, at least you can repurpose them by putting seeds in them. They already have a hole. A lot of the newer Keurig models actually will poke several holes. So you have your drainage hole there, pull out the filter, put some soil in it and put your little seed in it. This is a great way to share with friends so that you can do your plant swaps without having to go and invest in more plastic pots. Or you can do it in a big seed tray like this on the top left. And once they start growing, you can use a small fork to kind of gently pick them apart, separate them, and replant in bigger containers. This plastic lid right here in the middle, a lot of people think that you need to keep that on your seeds until they grow out of that container. No, only put that on your seeds at the very beginning, okay? Because your seedlings and the soil needs air, it needs oxygen. So as soon as you see little green things growing out of the soil, you need to remove that. That was only there to create a little bit of more warmth and moisture, like a little greenhouse environment to get your plants started. As soon as you start seeing your plants grow, remove the lid. We need that airflow. How and where to store seeds. We'll talk more about this later, but some seeds need a cold period, okay? They kind of go to sleep. They don't know when to wake up. Nature has a very unusual and very interesting way of working. So some seeds, you might store them in a drawer in your house where it's warm and cool, not too cold, obviously, because we have heaters in the winter. So your seed doesn't know when to wake up. It doesn't know that winter's over and spring and summer are here for it to start growing. So it just stays dormant the whole time. And that's why you're not able to grow from those seeds that you collected, because you didn't treat it properly. You didn't store it properly. Back to, the stored seeds. Always label them. Sometimes seeds look the same. So dry them out completely. You can store them in brown bags once they're completely dry. I like to store them in these plastic sandwich bags, but again, they have to be bone dry or they will rot. So make sure they're completely dry. I like to label them the name and where I found the seed or who gave it to me and what year. So you can keep track of that, because I've got some stored seeds that are like almost 10 years old. And I'll also teach you about that, how to test expired seeds so that you don't waste your time, so you know if they are viable or not. We'll talk about that soon. Label your planted seeds too. That top left up here, seeds can sometimes look exactly the same. And even the little baby plants that pop up, once they germinate, you may not be able to differentiate them from each other. So make sure you label them and put the date that you planted them, because if your seeds are no longer viable or if they've expired and passed their time, they may not come out of the ground and you might be wondering, what happened? But without the date, how will you remember how long it's been? So if a seed packet says that the seeds should germinate in 7 days and it's been 2 weeks, you probably need to toss those in the compost or throw them away. Cross-pollination and seeds. So when you're collecting seeds, please take a look at this graphic. All right, so we've got some busy bees, we've got wasps, ladybugs, even ants. They're all pollinators for us. That's why I don't like to use insecticides. I only use, I try to go organic if I can, or just let nature be. Just because you see one insect doesn't mean you need to jump to the store and apply things. Your backyard is part of nature. It's nature's kitchen. Okay, birds come to eat caterpillars and worms out of it. Let nature be, unless an insect is completely killing everything back there, just hands-off approach is what I do. Let bugs chew on your leaves. That's part of nature, okay? So be mindful of that. When you use too many insecticides and such, you're actually hurting yourself in your garden, because you're not going to have pollinators to help sexually propagate flowers. Like on a tomato plant, with a tomato plant, you've got male and female in the same flower. So all you have to do on that plant is kind of shake the stem gently and it sexually propagates and then a fruit is formed. But on a plant like a cucumber, you need a male flower and a female flower. They're separate. They're on the same plant, but they're apart from each other. You need a pollinator to come and touch that male flower and take the pollen to a female flower to create a fruit. So if you don't have pollinators, you're not going to get cucumbers and squash and things like that. So bring in those pollinators, bring in the pollinating plants, the ones that they love, that they're attracted to. But back to this, cross-pollination and seeds. Your seeds may not produce true to type, especially hybrids. Hybrids are plants that are crossed, two different plants. A lot of manufacturers will do that because, let's say with tomatoes, you'll find a hybrid tomato that tastes better, and then they will cross that with one that is more disease resistant or fungal resistant. So they cross those two to make a stronger plant or a tastier plant or a more resilient plant. And then, you end up buying that. Well, when the bees hit that plant and then hit another plant, it cross-pollinates. So if you try to save the seeds from that fruit and grow the same tomato plant, it may not come out the same. Another example is white diantha seeds, okay? Your white flowers that you collect the seeds off of may turn out to be pink, thanks to the bees cross-pollinating for you. Cherry tomato seeds might turn out to have larger fruit. You're thinking, oh, I saved this from my cherry tomato plant, but why are they medium-sized? Well, it's a crossbred tomato now. This is why I get excited when I see freebie plants growing out of my compost. A lot of times you guys will see little tomato plantlets, little babies growing and think, yay, a free plant. But it may not be bred to taste good. It might be mealy, or it may not be what you thought it was. Not to say it's bad. You can still eat it. It's fine, but it may not be what you expected. So I normally just toss those in the compost and let it be. But it is fun to sometimes find out what comes out of it. Some people are sticklers about cross-pollination. So this is on a tomato plant, and this person does not want their tomato crossbred by bees with anything else. So they are going in there by hand and pollinating with a brush or a Q-tip, whatever tool they're using. So this is kind of like, if you will, like a condom for your tomato plant. They're just saying, we don't want bees cross-pollinating this plant. We want to keep it true to this plant. So some people will actually do this, the real serious people. Now let's talk about expired or older seeds. Just because you've got some 10-year-old seeds or 5-year-old seeds stored in the kitchen, you forgot about them, don't toss them out. I just tested several batches of 2019 seeds. They were flowers and herbs, and I had 100% viability, meaning all of them germinated. What you do is go ahead and just get a sample size, like a few, maybe 5 or 10 out of your packet. And you can do something like this, where you get a wet paper towel, put it on a plate, sprinkle them on, make sure you label them, and then put saran wrap on top to create like a little greenhouse environment. You have to really saturate that paper towel. So the seeds think that they're in the ground, and they will germinate or bust out of their seed shell. Let's say that you do 10 seeds. You're testing 10 old seeds. And let's say that 5 of them germinated because they're 20, let's say they're 20-year-old seeds. So out of 10 seeds, 5 germinated. Well, you know that you're supposed to put, for this particular plant, 2 seeds per hole. Well, when only 5 germinated out of 10, that's a 50% success rate, right? So double up the seeds that you put in the hole. You might even triple it, if you're really aggressive, if you don't trust it. But that's how you find out about seed viability, because you don't want to go through the trouble of sowing your seeds, watering, waiting to see nothing, or maybe just 2 sprout. Wouldn't that be disappointing? So this is why you should do a seed viability test if they are seeds that you collected a while back, or if you bought a seed packet and it said packaged for 2020. It doesn't mean that you had to plant them in 2020. That is what's expected and what's recommended, but you can still plant them even 10 years from now if they're still good. There are seeds out there that are that scientists have found that are over 100 years old and still viable. So don't give up on those seeds. Also, when you do this test, see how these have sprouted? You can actually plant those in the ground. You don't have to toss those. Don't wait till they grow too big. They'll be weak. They need sunlight and everything else. But you can go ahead and plant these, but check on them every day because some of them can sprout the next day. Yeah, make sure you label them. Some people, what I like to do is get a paper towel, wet it completely, put one type of seed in there, put my paper towel over it, kind of like a sandwich. Okay, you're sandwiching the seed in between a wet paper towel, put it in a little Ziploc baggie, zip it up, label it. What day did you plant it so you can keep track? How long has it been? And then you can test it that way. All right, we've got scarification. Some seeds are very hard to germinate, so we have to help them out a little bit and kind of help them break through their seed shell. It's basically physically damaging them. You can also soak them. That's damaging the shell by making it soft so that the seed can penetrate through its hard shell. It increases germination rate. Some seeds will even tell you, some seed packets will say soak overnight before you plant. Make sure you follow those rules. Here are some examples of plants that benefit from this technique. Bluebonnets can be tricky. You can put out thousands of seeds and only a few actually grow for you. They have a built-in mechanism, okay, a really hard shell where if we had, let's say they all tried to germinate and then we get a freeze or some disastrous weather, it doesn't make that plant extinct, okay? Because some of them hold back. They may not germinate that year. Things may be great for them, but they're like, I'm going to hold back and germinate in year 2, even though they're in the ground, because that's just how they were made so that they can continually evolve on this earth. So if you want more bluebonnets, for instance, to germinate and you want like a big patch of beautiful blooms, what you need to do is get those bluebonnets and put them between 2 pieces of sandpaper and just gently scrub on them, okay, so that you thin out their shell. And that way you'll have more germination, more success rate. It's kind of a little trick. Here are some different techniques to scarify. Soaking the seed in warm water is usually the technique used, but some seeds are very resistant and need more help. Lotus flowers have a very hard shell. So on that top right picture, you see how it was filed down so that the inside is a little bit exposed. I've also used this technique where I actually put the plant in lemon juice. I did that with a trumpet vine, and the acid eats away at the shell over time, over a couple of days, and then you plant it, and then you have a better success rate. Cold stratification. Okay, this is what I was talking about earlier. You store your seeds in the wrong way, and then you wonder, why did it not germinate? Why do they appear like they're dead? It's because they didn't go through that chill cycle, okay? Make sure if your friends give you seeds, you Google the information, you know, how to store morning glory, how to store catmint, whatever the plant is, so that you know if they need a chill cycle or not. Some seeds are okay if they're kept in the house. If I'm in doubt or short on time, what I do is I just make sure they're dry, then I package them, label them, and I stick them in my refrigerator if I just don't have time to Google, because I know they won't get hurt, and they'll go through the chill cycle in my refrigerator, not the freezer, in the refrigerator. So doing that, it basically simulates the natural colder parts of the year and it breaks the seed's dormancy. The seed says, oh, time to wake up. It's warm out here. Let's do this. Sometimes it can take 1 to 3 months of being in the refrigerator. It's not an overnight technique. Here are some examples of plants that need cold stratification treatment. Note that if you bought your plants in commercially already prepackaged, the manufacturer, the grower has already done that for you. It is ready to plant. So you don't have to worry about doing anything like that. This is just for plants, seeds that you've collected, that your friends have given you, or that you've collected from your own garden. Let's talk about that dreaded damping off disease. This is where people tend to go wrong the most. They start to see that fuzzy, cottony stuff. Your plant looks like it started off okay. You're cheering it on, you're excited. And then all of a sudden, it looks like somebody pinched the stem and it looks like it's breaking. Or you planted the seeds and nothing happened. Okay. It's because of the fungi. It wasn't grown in a sterile environment. It could be that your hands were dirty. Okay. So I tell my students, treat planting seeds like you're doing surgery. Wash your hands. Okay. Put on gloves if you must, if you don't trust yourself. You need to sterilize your pots, especially if they're formerly used pots. Go ahead and give those a good brush. Soak them for a good hour in a 10% bleach solution. Um, or even like a Lysol solution. Prevention is definitely key. You have to start out right. The seed starting mix again, okay, that's optional. But if you continually have that issue of damping off, you don't know why your babies or your seed babies are dying, you may need to go that route. Get that extra, that sterilized seed mix to eliminate that problem. But if you start sterile and you soak your pots, you shouldn't have any issues. Your plants need to have good drainage. You need to water them, right? So baby seeds, they need more water. They're thirsty. They're dependent on you. They need that moist environment for them to germinate and for their roots to grow. But you do have to have good drainage. They can't be sitting in water because what happens? You end up getting an anaerobic environment, meaning bacteria, fungi, stink, rot, bad issues. So make sure you've got good drainage. Make sure there's good air circulation. And that's why it's important to go ahead and take off that seed cover, that plastic case that you can buy with the clear cover. It's important to remove that once you start seeing the seedlings growing because you need that air circulation to prevent a lot of fungal issues. An old trick is to sprinkle some cinnamon right after you plant your plants. Something that's been passed down. I do it sometimes. It's never hurt. I've never had any issues with it. Some people swear by it. I think it works. So you can give that a try. This part's really hard for me, but it's necessary. You're basically culling your baby plants. It's survival of the fittest. You have to do this because there's going to be too much competition. They're too close together. So if you've got that many plants together, some of the smaller ones will get shaded out. Some of the stronger roots will take more of the nutrition and water from the weaker ones. And the ones that are stronger aren't able to benefit in a greater way because they've got all this competition next to them, taking the resources that they want. So unfortunately, you do have to cull. It's always so hard for me. I do it. And then, I either, if they're microgreens or something, I'll eat them. But, sometimes you got to just stick them in the compost. But you do have to do this. I don't prefer the method on top. I like the method on the bottom. And the reason is because when your baby seedlings are growing, okay, they're so close together and their roots become intertwined. They network together, right? If you pull one out, you're ruining the roots of the one next to it and possibly killing the plant. So I do not recommend that top method of pulling. I just get little shears and I cut the smaller, weaker ones and allow the bigger plants to survive and get bigger and mature. Fork or tool. Sometimes you can, if they get a little bigger, you can pry them apart. If you go to like a big box store or even a mom and pop anywhere, you can get a pot of plants and you might have 3 growing in there, That's going to be too tight of a situation. You need to go ahead and cull some of those out. But what you can do is gently pry it apart with a fork or something like that, and you might get lucky and have 3 plants instead of 1. Let's take a look at these seed packets on thinning. Look up here, it says for the largest, allow only one on the vine. These are those competition pumpkins, the ones that you see on the news. And the reason they're saying only allow one fruit to grow per vine is so that all that energy is given to that one fruit, not 3, not 5, not 10. And that's how they're making those gigantic pumpkins, is because all the energy is concentrated. But it says right here, thin 2 to 3 per group. It tells you up here to sow 4 to 6 seeds, but over here it's telling you to thin them down to 2 to 3. And again, look down here. It says to direct sow these. It didn't say on the instructions to plant them indoors. These are recommended to direct sow outside. Over here, you have 2 options. You can start indoors or outdoors, and it tells you how deep to grow them and when to thin, when to cull. All right, so you're moving along great. Everything looks great. Your baby seedlings now are starting to look like a more mature plant. You've got a true leaf on it. So what do? Well, you need to start fertilizing, but I recommend only half strength. Okay, you don't want to burn your plants or use anything too strong. On tomatoes, those are kind of a different animal. Don't fertilize those yet. If you do, all the energy will go to just the green. We want that tomato to develop correctly so that later it's going to encourage more fruit. So wait on the tomatoes. Gently and lightly brush the tops of the plants to strengthen them. It's the same theory as trees. You know, with trees, we're not supposed to stake them for more than a year. You really shouldn't stake them at all if you don't have to, but if your tree is leaning or not propped up correctly, you can stake them. But the experts say only up to a year, because your tree, as it's tied up and staked, it becomes weaker because when the wind blows, it's not able to move. So it doesn't create a stronger trunk over time. Whereas trees that are allowed to move back and forth in the wind develop a stronger trunk. So same with your plants. If you grow them indoors, they've been in your air conditioning, your heating, in a cozy little environment, no wind. You take them outside and that first gust of wind comes through and they break because they're not used to movement. So use your clean hands, okay? Once a day, every other day, whatever your schedule allows, and gently brush the tops, very gently. Don't break them, but let them get used to that movement and the bending so that you have a stronger stem. Continue to water correctly. Don't ignore them, okay? Just because they're growing doesn't mean that they can be on their own. Bump up if needed. A lot of people get kind of greedy and they plant in these little containers there because they want a lot of plants. I love that, plant swaps, okay? You can bump them up. Bumping up means basically putting them into the next larger container. You don't want to put a little bitty seedling like this into a gallon pot. It's not ready for that. You want to bump up to the next size container. And then when it's ready after that, you can transplant it outdoors. Okay, so you've grown your plants inside. Are you ready to plant them outside? No. That's where people lose plants. Again, they think, oh, I'm excited. I see, it looks like a tomato plant. I can plant it outside now. No, you have to harden off your plants. Get them used to being outdoors. Read this definition. The process of acclimating plants and seedlings outside to the outside environment before planting them outside. You need to do that because they can get sun scorch and all kinds of issues. So never, ever transfer plants grown indoors directly outside. Think about how our skin can get burnt too on a hot, sunny day. So always do a gradual transfer from indoors to outdoors. For example, what you might want to do is on day 1, put them on your shady patio outside for a couple of hours. Bring them back in. The next day, put them out closer to the edge for maybe 30 minutes. The next day, maybe take them outside for a good hour. And then you can gradually increase the time frame that they're outside until they're ready for the pressure of the wind and the sun scorch and they're ready to be outside. Now you're ready to plant. So amend your soil. I always recommend, getting a soil test. If you haven't done so, you can go to Texas A&M's website. It's called soiltesting.tamu.edu. That's their soil testing lab website. You can send in your soil to get it tested to make sure everything's there that the plants need so that you don't have any bottlenecks or issues with plant growth. But do amend, go ahead and put some compost in there and take care of your plants. This is a shade cloth on the top left. Sometimes our hot Texas sun is a little too brutal, especially for young plants or even mature plants. You might have to put a little shade cloth so that you protect your plants from that western hot sun. Okay, it just depends on how much sun your backyard gets. Some people like to use these little liter plastic containers. You must take off the top because in the summertime, it can be like a hothouse in there. It'll burn your plants. Make sure you take those off. Some people use tomato cages and wrap them up with some fabric. This person on the bottom right got a little creative there. A lot of people want to plant tomato plants, and I want to make sure you pick the right seed or the right tomato plant for that matter. Let's take a look at this. Let's look at indeterminate tomatoes versus determinate tomatoes. Give you a second to study this. Okay. On the left, indeterminate tomatoes, okay? They're the vining tomatoes. They get tall. They need structure. They need support. They need a trellis. You know those little tomato cages? Not big enough, okay? We need something more than that. We need a trellis or something to provide them stability as they get long. Think about it like they are vines, basically. They need to be trimmed so that more energy goes to fruit producing. But the biggest thing about indeterminate tomatoes is they produce tomatoes throughout the whole growing season. Of course, until summer hits. When it gets too hot, tomatoes do not want to produce fruit or flowers. They just say, hey, I'm in survival mode. I'm just going to keep my green, no fruit for you right now. But later on, when it cools off, I may do that. But all in all, the indeterminate will give you tomatoes throughout the whole growing season. So that's great for like salads and things like that. If you want to can, let's look at the right-hand side, determinate tomatoes. They're smaller. Normally, the package of seeds will say something like patio tomato or good for containers because they're smaller. They're a bush tomato. But the thing about determinate tomatoes is they're kind of one and done. You get all your tomatoes at one time. So be prepared to can, make salsa, share with friends. They all come at one time, and then the plant slowly dwindles, and you've got to kind of start over again. So you might want to plant one indeterminate and one determinate and have the best of both worlds. But think about how you want to utilize your tomatoes. Do you want to can? Do you want tomatoes all the time? Do you have the space for an indeterminate, a big trellis? Okay, so think about this as you choose your tomato varieties. So let's read this label. This is a tomato. It says right here, it starts off indeterminate. Okay, it tells you right here, it's an indeterminate. Sometimes you kind of have to hunt for this information. It might be on the front cover, but 99% of the time, a plant tag will tell you that, or the seed packet will tell you if it's indeterminate or determinate. And look over here on the right, soil temperature, recommendation, planting depth, put the seeds 1/2 inch under the soil. They should germinate in 6 to 12 days. So if you planted them and it's been a month, you don't see any signs of tomato plants, something went wrong. You need to start over. This plant will get 3 to 5 feet tall. Maturity, meaning when will you get fruit from it? Tomatoes are fruit. You will get them within this time frame. Sun, tomatoes need a lot of sun. And how far away to space them. You have to read those instructions and follow that because these growers know what's best for that plant. Let's look at this one. Clusters of pear-shaped yellow fruits with mild, delicious flavor. Indeterminate. So this is a vine tomato. You'll get tomatoes all season long. The all season long thing, you're also not going to get as many tomatoes at once. You're going to get some sparse, and then you'll have a good week. Maybe the next week will be a little slower. Whereas again, the determinate ones are determined. They just all at once. You get all your tomatoes at once, then the plant kind of fizzles away. It says here, start indoors. They recommend starting them indoors. And then down here, transplant in our area, March through May. And then later on for the fall growing season, July through August. Let's look at this seed packet. Can you see it? Determinate or indeterminate? Right here, they're determinate. Okay. These are Roma tomatoes. They are determinate. These do very well here in North Texas. Here is a vegetable garden planting guide. You can easily Google this. Just go to Google, Yahoo, any search engine of your choice, and type in AgriLife Extension, like it shows up here, AgriLife Extension Vegetable Planting Calendar or Guide. Type that in, and then go to Images, and you will see a bunch of different calendars come up. Make sure you only choose one for our zone. We're in zone 8, okay? Make sure you don't choose one for zone 10, which is south of us, warmer, hotter climate. We have to stick to our schedule of growing. And this up here, it says Collin County. So they're in the area. They're in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. They are in zone 8. This is a really good calendar that I like to use. You can see here, going into March, we can still plant all these plants here that are indicated. But look right here in the summertime, it's kind of a dead zone, right? You can plant warm season greens. You can plant a few things in the summertime, but look at fall. Fall almost looks just like spring. That's why we say there are 2 veggie gardening seasons, spring and fall. This is a really good website. It's Texas A&M AgriLife Extension's recommended vegetable varieties. You can search by county, like our county here is Tarrant, or you can search by region, which we're in North and Central Texas, or Region B. It'll show a map. All you have to do to look this up is go to Google or Yahoo, any search engine, and type in vegetable variety selector. That's the first thing that'll pop up, Texas A&M vegetable variety selector. So you can go in there and select all the vegetables, print it out, go shopping. Or you can choose by the vegetable. You can choose to only print the tomatoes. You can do the cucumbers, whatever you like. This is just the first page. There are many, many pages. So if you're not wanting to grow a farm, I would just go ahead and select tomatoes or radishes, whatever ones you want to grow. Print the little, I call it a shopping list, and then take it to your store and look for them. I also like these charts, the companion planting charts. Some plants don't like to grow next to each other. They can stunt each other's growth. They can cause problems. They just don't like each other. So this companion planting chart on the right, it tells you that you shouldn't grow beans with chives next to each other. That's a red. That means no. Green means that's good. So pull up various companion planting charts to make sure that you're planning your veggie garden accordingly so that you don't accidentally put 2 enemies next to each other where you won't have success. They have to get along, okay? Here's another one. You can easily find these on any search engine by typing in companion planting chart. Print it up and put it on your wall for handy reference. All right, if you guys have any other questions, I'm here to help you. If you think of a question after this presentation, give us a call. It's absolutely free. The Tarrant County Master Gardener Helpline, 884-1944. A Master Gardener will answer questions that you have. If they don't know the answer, we've got all these different resources at Texas A&M and our county extension agent to get you an answer for whatever gardening problem you may have. You can also email us at tarrantmg at ag.tamu.edu. If you send us pictures and an issue, be as descriptive as you can so that we can help answer your question. Let us know what you know. How often do you water the plant? How did this problem arise? Or you can ask for recommendations. What's your website? How do I find good vegetables? So do reach out. We are here to help you guys. That is it.
Great job, Loretta.
Oh, thank you.
As usual, you covered everything.
Thanks.
Katrina wants to know, how do you know when your seedlings are large enough to start hardening them off?
Okay. Yeah, good question. I guess the guideline would be if they look like the ones they're selling at the store, that's a really easy way to kind of tell that they're ready to go. Make sure that their stems aren't too weak. It depends on the plant really. But that's what I would do. I think that would be the easiest is just to look online at what that plant looks like when it's brought to market to kind of compare. Because there's too many vegetables to explain each one. That's a really good guide, I think.
Okay. Someone has a question about poppy seeds. When should you plant those?
Okay, well, it's weird that you brought that question up. I just gave some to my mother-in-law. You know what? You're gonna have to look that up. I've never planted poppy seeds, but I did get some for free and I passed them on to my mother-in-law. All that information should be online if you Google recommended poppy seed planting time in North Texas, that should pop up for you. But that's a great question because anything that we plant, if you're not familiar with it, do look it up because like bluebonnets, for instance, people think, oh, plant those in the spring because they're bluebonnets. No, you have to plant those towards the end of the year. So definitely do your research before you plant those.
Okay, that's all the questions that I see.
Okay.
You covered
Um,
everything. You did really good.
Thank you. If you guys want to know some good indeterminate tomatoes that I personally enjoy, those are, of course, the vine tomatoes. If you want to go out and get the seeds or the plants, I like the Better Boy, the um, Big Beef, the Juliets do very well here. The Big Boy. They're also recommended on that vegetable variety selector website that I told you about through Texas A&M. They've been researched. So those are the ones that kind of made the cut and they know do very well here in our area. So those are good ones. Determinate varieties that do really well here. The Early Girl do very well. The Romas do very well. Those are the determinate varieties. And the Texas A&M website will also tell you right next to the tomato name an I or a D to let you know if it's indeterminate or D determinate. Any other questions?
Uh, One thing I want to say, that everyone needs to know that the evaluation form is in chat. So if you would, you could go ahead and complete that, before leaving this evening. We'd really appreciate that. You'll also get a copy of the evaluation form. It'll be emailed to you along with, again, the YouTube presentation so that you can watch it again if you wish to do so. Okay. We had 111 people attending.
Wow.
Master gardeners,
Yeah.
they have really good webinars.
Very nice. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Everyone have a good night. Thanks for joining us.